In 1993, three engineers sat down in a small booth at a Denny's restaurant in California with one impossible dream. They wanted to build a company that almost no one believed could survive. For years they struggled. They nearly ran out of money. Their first products failed. At one point, NVIDIA had just enough cash left for a single last chance. One wrong decision, and the company would have disappeared forever. Today, that same company is worth trillions of dollars, powers the AI revolution, and has become one of the most valuable businesses in history. At the center of that incredible journey is one man, Jensen Huang. This is the story of how an immigrant kid who once worked as a dishwasher became the man powering the future of artificial intelligence, and why almost everything you see in today's AI boom traces back to a gamble he made more than 30 years ago. Jensen Huang was born in 1963 in Tainan, Taiwan. Few could have imagined that this quiet young boy would one day build the company at the heart of the AI revolution. When he was still a child, his family decided to leave Taiwan in search of better opportunities in the United States. But before reuniting with his parents, Jensen and his older brother were sent to a boarding school in Kentucky. It wasn't the prestigious school his parents had imagined. Instead, it was a reform school where many troubled teenagers were sent. The young brothers were among the smallest students there and often found themselves surrounded by much older and tougher classmates. Life was difficult. Jensen learned very early that success wouldn't come from complaining. It would come from discipline, resilience, and hard work. After his parents finally settled in the United States, the family reunited in Oregon. Jensen quickly developed a passion for science, mathematics, and engineering. Unlike many children his age, he was fascinated by understanding how things worked, rather than simply using them. To help support himself, he took part-time jobs, including working as a dishwasher at a local restaurant. It was hardly glamorous work, but it taught him a lesson that would stay with him for life. No job is beneath you if it helps you move toward your goal. Those early years shaped the mindset that would later define his leadership at NVIDIA. Stay humble, keep learning, and never stop solving difficult problems. As Jensen grew older, one thing became increasingly clear. He wasn't just interested in technology, he wanted to build it. His passion for engineering led him to Oregon State University, where he studied electrical engineering. Unlike many students who focused only on passing exams, Jensen spent countless hours understanding how computers worked at the deepest level. He graduated in 1984 with a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, but graduating wasn't the finish line. It was only the beginning. Determined to push himself further, Jensen enrolled at Stanford University, where he earned a master's degree in electrical engineering. Stanford placed him at the heart of Silicon Valley, the place where the future of technology was being invented. While many of his classmates dreamed of joining successful companies, Jensen was becoming fascinated by a different idea. He wanted to create something entirely new. Before starting his own company, Jensen gained valuable experience at two semiconductor firms, LSI Logic and later Advanced Micro Devices. Those years taught him how the computer industry really worked. He saw brilliant engineers solving impossible problems. He also saw how quickly technology changed and how companies that failed to innovate were left behind. By the early 1990s, personal computers were becoming more powerful every year. But Jensen noticed something that many others ignored. Computer graphics were becoming increasingly important. Video games were evolving. 3D graphics were emerging, Scientists needed faster computing, yet the chips available at the time weren't designed for this future. Most people saw graphics as a small niche. Jensen saw the foundation of an entirely new industry. It was a risky belief. Almost everyone thought the biggest opportunities were in making faster CPUs. Very few believed graphics processors could become a business worth billions. But Jensen couldn't stop thinking about the idea. Then, in 1993, he met two brilliant engineers, Chris Malachowski and Curtis Preem. Together, they shared the same vision. Instead of building another ordinary chip company, they would build a company dedicated to graphics computing. It was an enormous gamble. None of them knew that the decision they were about to make would eventually change gaming, artificial intelligence, scientific research, and the future of computing itself. Their journey didn't begin in a luxury office. It began in a simple booth inside a Denny's restaurant in San Jose, California. That meeting would become one of the most famous origin stories in Silicon Valley history, and the company they founded would soon be known by a name the entire world would recognize: NVIDIA. In April 1993, Jensen Huang, Chris Malachowski, and Curtis Preem officially founded NVIDIA. The company started with a bold vision. They believed that graphics processors would become one of the most important technologies in the future. There was just one problem. Almost nobody else believed them. Investors were skeptical. The market barely existed, and the company had very little money. The three founders rented a small office and built a tiny engineering team. Every dollar mattered. Every decision could determine whether the company survived another month. Unlike today's NVIDIA, there were no billion-dollar data centers, no AI revolution, no global recognition, just a handful of engineers chasing an idea that most people thought was impossible. Their first major product was called the NV1. Jensen believed it would revolutionize computer graphics. The team spent years developing the chip. Everyone inside NVIDIA believed this would be the product that launched the company. But when the NV1 finally reached the market, it failed. Major game developers chose different technology standards. Customers weren't interested. Sales were disappointing. Months of hard work, millions of dollars, and years of effort had produced almost nothing. The failure was devastating. NVIDIA was burning through cash at an alarming rate. Inside the company, morale dropped. Outside the company, investors began losing confidence. Competitors like 3DFX were dominating the graphics market. Many people believed NVIDIA would never recover. Then came the worst moment. Jensen gathered his leadership team. The numbers were brutal. The company had enough money left for only a few more months. If their next product failed, NVIDIA would disappear forever. Years later, Jensen would describe it as one of the darkest moments of his career. there were no backup plans, no wealthy investors waiting to rescue them, no second chances. Everything depended on one final product. The pressure was unimaginable. Employees worked day and night. Engineers slept in the office. Every bug had to be fixed. Every deadline had to be met. Failure was no longer an option. Jensen knew that leadership wasn't about staying optimistic when things were easy. It was about making impossible decisions when everyone else was losing hope. He refused to give up. Instead of playing it safe, he pushed the team even harder because he believed something that almost nobody else did, that NVIDIA's best days had not happened yet. The company's future now rested on a single graphics card called Riva 128, and if it failed, NVIDIA's story would end right there. But sometimes, all it takes is one product to change the future forever. For NVIDIA, there would be no second chance. The company's survival depended on one product, the Riva 128. After the failure of the NV1, Jensen Huang made a bold decision. Instead of chasing a revolutionary idea, the team focused on building the graphics card customers actually needed. Everyone at NVIDIA knew this was their last opportunity. The engineers worked day and night. Failure would mean the end of the company. Then, in 1997, the Riva 128 launched. This time, it was a success. Gamers loved it. Computer manufacturers quickly adopted it. For the first time, NVIDIA was no longer fighting to survive. It was finally growing. But Jensen wasn't thinking about the present. He was already focused on the future. In 1999, NVIDIA introduced the GeForce 256, the world's first GPU. It changed computer graphics forever and helped establish NVIDIA as one of the fastest-growing technology companies. Then, in 2006, Jensen made another bold gamble. NVIDIA launched CUDA, a platform that allowed developers to use GPUs for much more than gaming. At first, very few people understood its importance. Some even questioned whether it was worth the investment. But Jensen believed the future of computing would depend on parallel processing. He stayed patient. Years later, that decision would become the foundation of the AI revolution. When artificial intelligence exploded in popularity, NVIDIA wasn't trying to catch up. It was already years ahead of everyone else. Jensen Huang had spent more than a decade preparing for a future that almost no one else could see. And when that future finally arrived, NVIDIA was ready. For years, NVIDIA was known as a company that made graphics cards for gamers. But Jensen Huang saw something much bigger. He believed that GPUs could power the future of artificial intelligence. For a long time, almost no one paid attention. Then, everything changed. In late 2022, ChatGPT took the world by storm. Almost overnight, every major tech company rushed to build AI. There was just one problem. Training powerful AI models required enormous computing power, and the best chips for the job were made by NVIDIA. Suddenly, companies like Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Meta, and OpenAI were all competing to buy NVIDIA's GPUs. Demand exploded. Revenue reached record highs. The company's value skyrocketed. Within just a few years, NVIDIA became one of the most valuable companies in the world. The gamble Jensen made nearly 2 decades earlier had finally paid off. His patience, his long-term vision, and his willingness to invest in the future when no one else believed had changed the technology industry forever. Today, almost every breakthrough in artificial intelligence, from self-driving cars to medical research and advanced language models, depends on the technology NVIDIA helped pioneer. Jensen Huang didn't just build a successful company, He helped build the foundation of the AI revolution. Today, Jensen Huang is recognized as one of the most influential leaders in technology. The company that once stood on the edge of bankruptcy now powers the world's most advanced AI systems, supercomputers, robotics, and scientific research. Yet despite NVIDIA's extraordinary success, Jensen has remained remarkably consistent. He still wears his signature black leather jacket. He still speaks directly with engineers. And he continues to think years, even decades ahead. His leadership isn't built on chasing short-term profits. It's built on patience, innovation, and the courage to invest in ideas long before the rest of the world believes in them. Looking back, NVIDIA's story was never just about building faster computer chips. It was about believing in the future before anyone else could see it. From a small startup founded in a Denny's restaurant to one of the most valuable companies in history, Jensen Huang's journey proves that vision, persistence, and long-term thinking can change the world. Every great company has a defining moment. For NVIDIA, it was surviving when failure seemed inevitable. For Jensen Huang, it was believing in the future when almost no one else did. His story reminds us that success rarely happens overnight. Behind every breakthrough are years of uncertainty, sacrifice, and relentless determination. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe to Lifelio Stories for more inspiring stories about the people and companies shaping our world. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.